We had one of these court reporters listen to the previous show or the segment or whatever and post a negative review on Google. Probably should have never been posted. It's a violation of Google's policies. We sent him a nice little email and educating him on the law, and he has since removed the negative review, and he's in fact he's I think thanked us for the education. We're not going to mention his name or call him out. I'm sure he's a nice gentleman who was just a little bit fired up, and maybe did something in haste. So that being said, I think this show has done good work for maybe extending an olive branch to our court reporting community. We certainly love those people, and we think they are relevant and they're going to stay around, and we think they're going to be paid more money than ever. I think so. But the technology, there is going to be an intersection of technology that's going to come into play. Welcome to episode 128 of the Weekly Docket, a podcast by the Silverman Law Firm where we talk legal news and practical law. Today is June 25th, 2026. I'm Phil Silverman, owner of the firm and your host, and I'm joined by Patrick Caldwell, who's one of our firm's attorneys. Patrick, welcome back, and thank you for coming on the show again.
Welcome. I'm glad to be here. It's nice. I love what you've done with the green room. It's terrific. The snacks were exquisite this time.
Good. We, Patrick's of course joking, since we operate in a completely virtual environment. We got some great feedback from last time Patrick was on the show, so we're very pleased and privileged to have Patrick back. And Patrick, you've joined at an interesting time. We've really stirred up all of social media and in the court reporting community across the country. This whole show is dedicated to court reporting, and if you would have told me, a month ago we'd be dedicating a whole show to court reporting, I would have said you're crazy. Who wants to hear about a topic as dry as that? Mm-hmm. But apparently you never know what's going to stir up and be controversial. So that's what we're doing. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get it started. We're going to talk about court reporting. We're talking about depositions. We're going to talk about some of the rules of civil procedure and how this process works. Let's talk about first kind of some how we upset everybody. And I guess what happened was one of our social media posts has gotten over 100,000 views. That's a very popular post for sort of a dry legal show, and a lot of likes, a lot of positive feedback from clients and attorneys, but all of the very impassioned negative comments are from court reporters. And one of our firm's, our firm's managing lawyer, Chris Field, in another show, he just made some sort of benign comment at the time that he saves clients money by requesting transcript copies of the depositions in discovery as opposed to ordering, certified copies from the court reporter. This started a whole string of backlash, everything from threatening to turn us into the state bar, calling us names, a negative Google review. And, let me just say, no one is trying to do court reporters wrong or see them not get income. We're just trying to talk about how we represent clients and some relatively boring processes within the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure. Patrick, have you had much interaction with court reporters or?
Yeah, well, and all of the interactions that I've had with them, they've all been great. They've all been very pleasant people, very professional, kind of a nice mix between, we're here to help and then not taking sides. Mostly if you're in a deposition, for example, then you've got the two parties there and they have to be neutral and calm and also make sure that they get everything handled. So sometimes they're put in a little bit of a tough position, but they've always been unfailingly polite and nice, except that one guy in Phoenix that one time. But other than that guy in Phoenix, they've all been great. And I understand the perspective here. It might have sounded to them like we were basically talking about how to cheat them out of their hard-earned stuff. And obviously, from where we're sitting, you and I, that it was definitely not the intent. But the the work that they put into that is kind of it's tricky, and I can see where they're getting a little bit more protective of that, especially as technology continues to advance.
Yeah, and we'll talk a lot about the technology later in the show and some of the changes going on in court reporting. But before we do that, because not all of our clients, I mean, not all of our listeners are lawyers, or court reporters or other legal professionals. We need to do a little background work on depositions. So a deposition in a lawsuit is basically when you get to ask a witness or the other party a bunch of questions under oath outside of court. We don't have trial by ambush, so before we go to trial, we want to know what the witness is going to say or what the other party was going to say. So if it's my deposition and I want to depose the other party, I schedule the court reporter. I pay for an appearance fee. Normally, court reporters, depending upon the market location, $75 to $150 an hour. Full day might run you $600 to $800, and then you bring the court reporter into sort of an office and you ask the witness or the party questions under oath, and the court reporter gets paid an appearance fee. And then if it's my deposition, if I've noticed the deposition and I want to depose the opposing party, for example, I want the original transcript. I'm going to pay for it. And as part of the cost of the original transcript, I usually pay per page. And it might be, $5 to $7 per page, and it could be a couple hundred pages long. So I might pay $1,000 for a transcript, and that goes out to our court reporters. I want the transcript. It's not my client. It's the opposing side. I don't have control over that witness or that party. So I want his a record of his testimony under oath. Patrick, are you with me so far? You agree with all that?
Yeah, that's right. And that is kind of sensible. The economics of it is still all consistent with the person who wants the service pays for the service. And I think you're about to now step into the area where it gets a little murkier.
Yeah, I am. One more thing before the murkiness occurs, that you get this thing called an errata sheet. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but right. ERRATA. And after the depo, if you're the witness of the party, the person getting deposed gets an opportunity to review it and correct it. And then the deponent, the person getting deposed, they have 20 days, from the date the transcript was made, to make corrections. You can't really correct substantive testimony. I mean, it's more for like clerical, things. All right. And then when that comes from the court reporter, usually there's some technology. The court reporters sort of don't want you to be able to print it. Sometimes they provide it to you in a link, and then it disappears, or maybe it says unofficial copy on it, whatever.
Right.
And that's fine. It's more like technology driven. They're trying to protect that as their work product.
Right.
Not a big deal. Now here comes the issue that stirred everybody up, Patrick. It's the copy thing.
Right.
If let's say it's not my deposition and I represent the party getting deposed, I may not want a certified copy. All right. My client may not want to pay $1 or $5 a page. I've learned these copies are an additional profit for the court reporter. Fine. So be it. And Chris, our firm's supervising lawyer, managing attorney, said he saves, client money by not ordering a certified copy. But what he does is he just requests it in discovery through a request for production. Chris apparently has been doing this for, his lifespan of his practice for 18, 20 years, however long he's been practicing. And he didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of it at the time he said it. Patrick, now be honest, would you have thought anything of it would you have thought that would have been one of the most controversial things ever said in the history of our podcast?
I don't know if I would have put it up as controversial, but I do remember thinking, oh wow, that's pretty sneaky. That's a good way to get out of having to pay that. Because I think we had, like, when I had heard that, I had just forwarded an invoice to a client saying, here's what we have to pay the court reporter, and they never look at that number. It's a little bit like maybe when you bring your car in for service, where you see the
Yeah.
number and it's gigantic and it's one lump thing, and you think, oh my God, he just changed the oil. But no, you don't understand. He had to take the entire engine out, ship it to Toledo, get it, spray it off,
Mm.
and bring it back. And so there's the number that we see, and it's even broken down sometimes in like X dollars per page or something like that. But that
Yeah.
doesn't really capture all of the production that goes into these things.
Mm.
That it's not just the court reporter lady sitting there typing what she hears. There's the certification element of it. There's all of the additional guarantees, almost like insurance, where it's not worth it unless you need it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and then people don't see that, oh, I didn't even use it. Why am I paying this much? Well,
Yeah.
some of it is that, you're paying for the expertise that the words that are on the page were the words that were said. And
Mm.
part of that process is the errata process, saying that we not only do we train ourselves, I'm speaking from the perspective of the court reporters, but not only are they trained to accurately transcribe what was said, including the ums sometimes and all of that, but they're also there to have their whole system pointed at making sure that everything is captured accurately and fairly, and that everybody gets a chance to agree on that before it becomes the official version of what happens. And if you want to,
Yeah.
if you need the official version, then that's why it's expensive. But
Agreed.
I think people maybe are used to also seeing, at least from the real estate side of it, sometimes we'll look at deeds that are recorded or that are shown on the property sites, and some of them will say unofficial on there. And if you're just looking to see,
Hmm.
is this, is this the current owner, for example, or when was this last sold or something like that? If you don't need to prove it up in court, then just, looking at the screen and then doing a screenshot from the county records, that's good enough for
Mhm.
what you need to do. And I don't think people,
Yeah.
maybe we just kick the hornet's nest and we're going to get a bunch of county employees now going,
Well,
we don't understand.
now
What
where
website
we
is
got
that?"
another. You
Yeah.
did it again, Patrick. You
Sorry,
did it again.
sorry. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what I heard from you, what was interesting. Now, when you first heard the podcast, the show that Chris and I did, your impression was that was sneaky.
I
Is that
did think it
right?
was, because I didn't think though that it was unethical, or I
Yeah.
thought it was one of those like saving tips. Like if you wait until you're after you've paid at the drive-through and then you ask
Yeah.
for the barbecue sauce, they're less likely to
Okay.
charge you 25 cents for it. It's sort of one of those tips
Okay.
like that. It's like, okay,
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
I get
the
it,
court
but
report, the court reporters, I guess, thought it was sneaky as well when they listened to the podcast. There were even some lawyers that I think that had that opinion. Overwhelmingly, I think the feedback was good from lawyers just based on all the likes. But let me just sort of set the record straight on what the law is, and this is Texas Rule Civil Procedure 203.3 C like Charlie. And this is inspection and copying copies. And it says of the transcript, the party receiving the original deposition transcript or non-stenographic recording must make it available upon reasonable request for inspection and copying by the other party. So I mean, it's right there in the rule.
right.
Okay, if it's my depot, and obviously I pay the court reporter, I order the original transcript, I'm going to do that. And if the opposing side wants it, I have to give it to him. I
Right.
mean, it's just like right there in the rule. So this is sort of black letter, law.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, there's no question that it's legal. It's almost definitely ethical. The heartburn, I think, comes from the fact that it is it doesn't
Mhm.
match well with the pricing model that the court reporters have set up for how they get paid for
Right.
the hard work that they do. And that's where
Yeah.
the disconnect is that, this is not the only example of this happening in court. There's, for example, and I don't think anybody would disagree with this part of it. If you are a pauper or if you sign the pauper's affidavit, you don't have to pay for an appeal bond from JP court into
Mhm.
county court. And nobody thinks that that is stealing. It's just, that's part of the
Mhm.
way the justice system is. And if there are some, folks that think that they should be forced to pay that amount, they're in the minority, I think. And
Yeah.
so, like, as a matter of justice, if the party requesting it their options are either don't get it or
Mm.
request it and get it for free, then it's going to be hard to say that they're going to have to pay the often pricey amount for the full package. And so this is
Yeah.
sort of I'm not going to say loophole, but it's sort of baked in there to make sure that the litigants all have a fair opportunity to access the tools they need for the trial.
Now, of course, you can get a certified copy from the court reporter, and
Right,
under the rule, the court reporter has to do that for a reasonable fee, and they like that. That they want to sell the transcript.
right,
And there may be cases where you, even though it's not your deposition, want a certified copy,
right,
right?
right.
And
Absolutely.
we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I can't see that there's anything wrong with requesting a copy from opposing counsel who noticed the depo expressly permitted in the rules. And I think this is the more important part that maybe the court reporters are not that empathetic to. We represent Our firm especially represents individuals, small businesses. These are not big corporations that
Right,
have unlimited litigation budgets. And our duty as an attorney, as our law firm, is to the clients we represent,
right,
right? So we need to be good stewards of their money. And that doesn't mean they're trying to cheat court reporters, but
right.
all right. Now, why might we not want a copy? We kind of hinted at some things like this, Patrick. If it's our client, okay, I don't need a copy of his deposition usually. Okay. I have access to him. I can ask him things all the time.
Right.
I can have him sign an affidavit, for summary judgment purposes. I can present him at trial, for live testimony. So, um, I I might want, just an uncertified copy from opposing counsel as I go through the case. So few of our cases actually go to trial. An uncertified copy may be just fine.
Right,
Okay.
right,
Um, this actually came up, and I didn't realize this, but this actually came up before the Texas Supreme Court, where it was whether or not you could attach an uncertified copy to a motion for summary judgment as evidence. And this was, I don't know how to pronounce this, Mitcanathey versus Mitcanathey, however they pronounce that. It was a 1994 case. And the Supreme Court expressly said, um, it's not necessary to get an authenticated copy under the rules. So
and
there,
do you remember whether that case indicated that there had to be in existence somewhere an authenticated copy? That it couldn't be that this
mm,
was the errata sheet, for example, and that there
yeah,
had to be at least some indication that it was authenticated, you just weren't using that version.
I don't remember that specifically. I didn't read the whole opinion, but I do remember reading that the Supreme Court basically said, look, this isn't that complicated. You have two lawyers that knew that the deposition occurred. They
Right,
knew that there was an original copy and there was an original transcript out there somewhere. Nobody's arguing about that. All right. And we're not going to pour someone out on a summary judgment motion because they didn't use a certified copy. All right. That was
right,
kind of what the Supreme Court said about that case. But um, the prior to that Supreme Court ruling, there were some attorneys out there. There was another case, I can't remember the name of it, where they were under the impression it was a little ambiguous that you might need certified copies for summary judgment evidence. And obviously that would have helped the court reporters a little bit more if the 1994 case never, didn't overrule that or clarify that
right,
case, right? So,
right. Well, and I could see
um,
part of this is that if we're going to have a court reporter system, then they need to be encouraged to participate in that and voluntarily, which would mean that they're paid for it, and they need to be paid what they are willing to do it for. And if the
mhm,
model requires that at some point it be certified, then somebody has to pay for it. Then there is a mechanism by which they can get paid. But if everybody can just rely
right.
on the unofficial version, then we'll quickly
Mm,
find ourselves with nobody wanting to do court reporting because They know they're gonna send the errata sheet out, and then that's the last they hear from the client. It's like, ha, I got you. I'm just gonna use the
Yeah.
unofficial version. Thanks. And that's obviously
Well,
not gonna work.
right. We want court
Right.
reporters, and I think you're going to opine on this a little bit later. And we'll talk about why there's pretty much already a shortage of court reporters. But, um, so okay. That being said, when might you want a certified copy? And if it's not your deposition and it's your client, the time I can think of that you would really want a certified copy is if you were going to go to trial and you needed the deposition transcript and you wanted it, you wanted to use it. Now, of course, even that's a stretch because the other side is probably more likely to want the original copy to have been filed, and you're going to agree that's for use, and admissible, and that's already going to be in evidence.
Right.
But I suppose, to cover your bases, you may want a certified copy there at your desk, during
Right.
the trial
That's
as
right.
well. So few cases are going to trial, you start to wonder, what, really, the need for a certified copy is if it's not your deposition. So,
Right.
the, our firm, we really do love court reporters, certainly not trying to do them any harm. But again, as we have a duty to the clients. Okay. And I did a lot of research on court reporting right now, and the industry is under a lot of pressure. There's
Right.
some AI and voice recognition technology out there that's putting pressure under the traditional court reporting industry. Now all this technological advancement, it's not just because we as the society were trying to get rid of court reporters, and there's even pressure on law firms right now with AI,
Right.
and attorneys. That goes both ways. But in the court reporter world, and I just learned this, we are huge shortage of court reporters. We're running out of court reporters. There was a 21% decrease in recent years because there was a wave of retirement.
Right.
Harder to find, people that know shorthand. I don't think this is offensive, Patrick, but most court reporters were kind of older ladies, right?
Right.
And they've since retired. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and enrollment in stenography schools down 74%. Young people are just scared of the technology. You don't want to go into a profession that could be replaced by AI and voice recognition
Right.
software. So what are your thoughts on that, Patrick?
Well, I mean, first of all, we need more people to get ready for the eventual Butlerian jihad that we're going to have to wage against all of the AIs to settle all that kind of stuff. And so there will be a massive spike in demand required for people who could do shorthand, who could do Morse code, all that kind of stuff when we finally have to revolt against the robot overlords. And so I hope the younger people listening to this start training now. We're going to need your help. It's probably coming faster than we're ready for. But aside from that, the court reporters themselves, they are, this is maybe an early example of where there's going to be and continue to be big gaps in what AI can do. And so the original vision was that, we'll just pop this AI in, we could feed them the audio recording, maybe even the video recording, and then they will produce a flawless transcript. And it turns out that's much harder to do than was anticipated. And we really do need those people to put their human judgment in and know how to extract the real activities from that what actually happened. So it's critical that they're able to use their human judgment to know. Well, here's an easy example. You have an attorney in the middle of questioning, and one of the deponents, the deponent uses a name, and the court reporter needs to know how to spell that to make sure it's accurately captured, but does not want to interrupt the attorney while they are having that discussion. So then there's an appropriate time to step in and note, I'm sorry, you mentioned this guy's name. Could you spell that for me? Something like that. And to do that in a way that does not interfere with the deposition process itself, because is probably more art than science, but we need humans to be able to do that, because the robots, they're not going to be able to handle that kind of nuance. Likewise, the ability to hear different accents, the ability to hear different ways of pronouncing things, little turns of phrase. I can't tell you how many times I've seen kind of funny malapropisms get baked into a transcript where it's pretty obvious that the closed captioning is a great example of that. If you have a human do it, it's flawless. If you have the robot do it, you get really funny kind of unintended consequences there. And so I think, ironically now, with the rise of the AI, it's becoming more important to have human court reporters available because they're the only ones who are going to be able to guarantee that this is really accurate. Because what's going to happen is storage is supposedly cheap now, but eventually even all these audio recordings, the originals are going to be lost. And we need to maintain a process that can ensure collaborative agreement on reality. And that's where the human element is essentially turning out to be mandatory. We're not going to be able to use AI to get around that. And the court reporters are maybe right now facing the beginning of what should be a nice spike in their demand for their services and accordingly a nice spike in the prices they can command for those services, because good ones are going to be rare and even more valuable than before.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think that's well said. I'm a big fan of sort of using, because we do have a problem in that there's a shortage, Patrick.
Right.
So we have to do something, and the state of Texas the Supreme Court's looking at that. Other states like California, I mean, not that we want to follow California's example ever, but I mean, other states are looking at solutions because there just aren't that many court reporters anymore. So I'm a big fan of what we're calling the human in the loop technology, where we don't have to train young people on how to take shorthand anymore, but through technology, the human can monitor what the AI is doing, what the voice recognition is doing, and then the human can go and correct it a little bit later, but maintain some control. I'm a big fan of that one. There's also something called a noise canceling steno mask. This is kind of new. And what you do is you take someone, you put them in a corner during the deposition, you put a mask on them, and then they just speak softly. They speak softly into the mask, repeating everything.
Yeah.
And that because if you have someone with a really thick accent, the idea being that the human can recognize or stop, hey, I couldn't catch that.
Right. Yeah.
And then they speak it into the mask, and then you may get a good product, and you're not having to teach someone the shorthand. So,
I'm not that part of it. I could see that, like what we're noticing here is that we're being more able to separate out the various parts of this whole operation, and one of them is accurately capture the sound in the room, and then later accurately turn that into text on a page. And if that whispering, almost like an ASMR mask, about now he's saying that he was really sorry about stealing all of those cars, and I mean, I could imagine that there might be an improvement to capturing the audio of it, but that still requires the human judgment on the other end for the transcription, to where they can learn how to take that into, this is what was actually said. Even I know it sounded like he said birthday cake 5 times, but what he really said was this, and that's where the human in the loop part is more necessary. I think maybe better microphones and better transcribers is the better approach there.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, before we close, I do have a last minute update. Okay. We had one of these court reporters listen to the previous show or the segment or whatever and post a negative review on Google. Probably should have never been posted. It's a violation of Google's policies. We sent him a nice little email and educating him on the law, and he has since removed the negative review, and he's in fact I think thanked us for the education. We're not going to mention his name or call him out. I'm sure he's a nice gentleman who was just a little bit fired up and maybe did something in haste. So that being said, I think this show has done good work for maybe extending an olive branch to our court reporting community. We certainly love those people, and we think they are relevant, and they're going to stay around, and we think they're getting to be paid more money than ever. I think so. but the technology, there is going to be an intersection of technology that's going to come into play, just like this is going on in our practice. So,
Right.
all right, that brings our show to a close. I've been your host, Phil Silberman. Patrick has been my very gracious co-host today.
Thanks.
Like us, follow us, review us wherever you get your podcasts. And as a reminder, nothing in this show is to be considered legal advice, and this has all been for entertainment purposes only. If you have a legal question, email us at info@silblawfirm.com and tell us you want it publicly answered in the podcast. Everybody have a great rest of your week and weekend.